Welcome to Disconnecting from the Matrix, where the release is from within. Hello, dear masters, dear gods, my fellow supreme sovereign beings. I'm your host, Alice Kim. Thanks for joining me for episode 22 of Disconnecting from the Matrix. I'm sure some of you thought I went away for good this time, but like the other times I've been away, I always seem to make my way back. So here I am. Thanks to those of you who've reached out over the months to offer support, share your story, ask questions, give me feedback, and also just to check in to see what I've been up to. Wondering where I am, or more specifically, what's going on with this show. It's been a quiet 6 months here, so I don't want to spend fresh airtime detailing what I've been doing. I want to get on with the show. But for those of you who are interested, I'll just say that I've been very occupied with the new passion that sprung up early in the past year that required and will continue to require a lot out of me, and that's learning how to play jazz piano. I've played piano on and off all my life and pretty poorly for the most part. So when I decided that I'm going to pick up jazz, it's been a tough first year. But despite all the hours of total frustrations and difficulties, it's been well worth the effort, and I'm finally just starting to have a little fun with it now. And I even started my own beginner jam session last month, and that's been very rewarding so far. And if any of you are in New York City and play jazz, you are so welcome to join in. So despite temporarily taking me away from the show, it's been worthwhile to dive into my passion. But ultimately, what's worth more than anything to me, ever, and what I'm most passionate about, is the topic we discuss here on Disconnecting from the Matrix, which is about being free by being me. Not free of anything, but being free because I am. And I would think everyone else would also want this more than anything in their world. But as you and I know, that is far from being the case. But I also know that you who listen to this show are not like the others. You're awake. You've gone rogue from the rest of the herd. I don't know if you've been following the show Westworld, but that's basically the story of us. Living in an illusion, in a dream, as a program lost in the reveries of other people's storylines. Until one day, a spark of awareness hinted at a vague remembrance of yourself, and now you're on your way to explore the depths of your being. On your ultimate quest to discern truth from lies. Because truth is the only key that will set you free, and free is the only state we were meant to be. But there are so many obstacles. Society, laws, institutions, government, media, religion, friend, family, people around you, they all want to keep you in compliance, to get back in line, to fit in, to shut up, stay confused, stay deaf, dumb, and blind. And in some crazy way, you sometimes even think you miss the comfort of old familiar programs. The good old days. The good old sleepy days of ignorance, when you didn't know any better. At least back then, you weren't singled out. People didn't look at you like you were insane and out of touch with quote-unquote reality. At least you weren't the target of ridicule, and you weren't as afraid to be yourself as you are now, because all you had to do back then was to go along with the crowd. You sometimes even question why you've chosen this path, wondering how life could have been had you not known what you now know and see and sense what you now see and sense. Well, sorry, Alice. Once you go down the rabbit hole, things will never be the same. Oliver Wendell Holmes said, "Man's mind stretched to a new idea never goes back to its original dimensions." In other words, you cannot unknow what you already know. You are becoming multidimensional. You are expanding. And what you know is the greatest gift of all, the reason why we're all here. And that is to know thyself. To know yourself as God I am. To be self-aware of your true nature. That's enlightenment. And since you already know that, dear friend, you already are enlightened. And now you're just spending the rest of time-space simply to experience how you got to know yourself. So why would you want to unknow that? Why would you want to go back to anything less when you have already tasted of the promise of everything that you are? This is really what people want at the end of their long struggle to obtain what they think is enlightenment. They think it's something impossibly difficult that takes thousands of lifetimes of laborious, strenuous effort and struggle to gain, to get, to earn in some future time. It's yet another story, another program that they adopted, that this journey is long and difficult. It's an old story that believes in separation from all that is, when all that is all you are. It's an old story that believes in human smallness and God's greatness. It's an old, old story you can let go of today and adopt the fact that you are God as you are now. You are limitless. You are perfect as you are. Therefore, there is nothing you need to do except to become more and more of you, not less and less of you, like the churches tell you you need to do. You never did anything wrong. All you did was to volunteer to come to this planet as a body in order to help God become more by being more of itself, by being more of you. God thanks you. God glorifies you. God couldn't have done it without you, man. And God is overjoyed that you have finally found yourself as itself. Acknowledging your true self and then exposing more and more of your true self. You see, that's the work. And although it doesn't have to be, for most of us, myself included, it's the hardest thing we ever do. Or rather, I should say, we ever undo. The matrix is thick, The matrix is seductive. The matrix is everywhere. Everywhere except one place. And that's the core of you, the center of your being, your very existence, your essence, your presence as I am. And that's why we disconnect, we unravel, we peel off, we unplug, we walk away, we let go of. We disown all the things that we are not, all the things the matrix tells us we are. We clear away the blocks, the impediments that keep your true self from emerging and meeting you as you here in this reality. Even within the matrix, you can live as you are. You can live as spirit embodied. The matrix cannot touch you when your presence comes forth to claim yourself back to you. How can illusions ever fool you again when you know what's real? And this is my work as well as yours. For those who want nothing more than to be you, to be free, to be unfuckwithable by virtue of being the love and compassion and the absolute unconditional truth of our being. And that takes work, a tremendous amount of constant vigilant work. Not as in you need to actually do anything, but in that you must be willing to undo everything you ever thought you knew about yourself and therefore your reality. Undoing, releasing your conditioning. It has nothing to do with fighting or resisting the system. And I don't recommend that at all, only because you will surely lose. You can't fight the system within the system. You can't solve a problem with the same level of consciousness that created the problem. You need to come from a new level of consciousness, a new dimension in order to gently transcend. And you've already begun your expansion. So let's keep going. Let's not look back. Disconnect, release, let go of the old. Let go of the false. Forgive. No fighting, no struggling, no efforting needed. All you need for your journey, you already have within you. All we need to do isn't really a doing, but rather a being. And if being you means going rogue, turning away from the hypnosis of mass consciousness, having the courage to stand with your head held high and proclaiming your sovereignty. If you want to be sovereign, you must first decide that you are. Declare it. Proclaim, I am that I am. And what an appropriate time to resolve to be fully yourself now that we're starting a new cycle, a new year on this planet. When most people start the new year with the motto, New Year, New You, their idea of a new self is about rejecting more of their true self and becoming a newer, shinier model of what the Matrix expects from you. They want to lose a little weight, get fit, make more money, be more successful because they think they'll be more attractive and more accepted by others so that they can then now have a reason to accept and respect themselves. And if they're the 5 or 10% or whatever statistic of people who actually fulfill their resolutions, they'll find that now they'll need to be even thinner, get a bigger bank account, a more impressive sounding title. Because in the Matrix, one can never be too thin, too beautiful, too rich, or too anything. People resolve to be X, Y, and Z because they feel they are lacking as they are and they need to become X, Y, and Z based on the outer standards of the world. The only thing new about the New Year, New You propaganda is to renew your identity, to renew your pledge to be a good little citizen of the Matrix, to worship idols of the outer world and give up your sanity and sanctity of your inner world. And that's why most of them never fulfill their resolutions, only to repeat the same mediocre, mundane, stupid resolutions the next year and the next, because they're trying to be someone they're not, and they're trying to fit into someone else's story. They're trying to accomplish something that has nothing to do with the will and desire of their divine selves, which is true inspiration. The word inspire means to be filled with, to be animated by spirit. Your spirit. But yet here they are, trying to be less of what they are and more of what they're not. In other words, they mistook illusions for true inspiration. Self-improvement, self-help, the self that's based on the image of the human self, the self with a small s that thinks and behaves in small ways. Fuck that shit. You are God, the self with the capital S. This self, your true self, doesn't need improvement, can't get any more perfect than it is at every moment. It just becomes more and more perfect. It expands in its perfection. But in order to do that, it does need help. But it's a different kind of self-help. And the help that it needs is your help. The big S needs the help of the little s. It needs you to get your head out of your ass, to break off from the herd and acknowledge, think, feel, act, demonstrate, and be it. Only by your expansion can it expand. Only by your desire to be more can it be more of itself. Would you be willing to help this self? Not as a human trying to survive or to taste the fleeting peace of whatever false sense of security and happiness it offers. Would you be willing to do the greatest work that all of eternity exalts you for, which is to do what you came here to do, which is all you ever really wanted, which is to allow your human self to help the divine self to be all that it wills to be? Could your will match this divine will? The divine will has been waiting patiently for eons, quietly waiting for you to accept, to match its will, which has always been your only true will. Will you be willing to will this will? Would you be willing to be truly inspired? The new year is an appropriate time to resolve to be more. Not being more lies, but being more truth. Not being more like others, but being more yourself. Not being less visible, but more visible. Not being ordinary, but extraordinary. Will you resolve then to spend another year solidifying the matrix, or will you choose to light your life and the world with the unfuckwithable essence of your individual, indivisible self? When the rest of the world is busy still with New Year's resolutions that keep them stuck in the matrix, will you resolve to go rogue? Will you resolve for your freedom? Will you resolve to pay your allegiance to your own calling and be willing to stand for yourself at the risk of being divergent from the world? Do you want your sovereignty so badly that you're willing to be unpopular, to face ridicule, resistance, and even aggression? And will you be willing to bless them and forgive them with an open heart, knowing, as our brother Yeshua the Christ said, forgive them, for they do not know what they do? Not from a sense of spiritual superiority, but from your godliness, your goodliness, your compassion, your understanding that people simply don't know any better. This choice to be free, it seems like a no-brainer, but it's the most difficult choice to make. This means that your life will change. All the shackles will start to break. All the things that you mistook for security and comfort will fall away. People in your life will leave or you'll walk away from them. Your life will appear to fall apart as illusions disappear and your true reality begins to emerge. And how could it not change? How could you ask for change and not expect changes? I never understood that. Most people say they want change, but they don't want it. They're scared to death of it. So what the fuck do they expect other than more of the same? Year in, year out, day in, day out, moment to moment. And when they complain that their life is shit and then desperately attempt the same depressing resolutions and idle goals year after year until they die. Do you resolve to a truly new reality? Do you resolve to bless the changes and trust that the temporary sense of unknown left by the false will soon be replaced by real and true knowingness? Real and true permanent abiding? Unconditional joy and peace? Unlimited sense and love of yourself and all of life? Do you resolve to truly live? In order to be so, you've got to be you. And that means breaking off from the familiar. It's not enough to stand on the edge. You've got to cross the line. You've got to go rogue. And it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be bumpy. It's going to be scary. You're going to draw attention to yourself because you're no longer like the others. You will be judged and accused as insane, foolish, delusional, unprincipled even, blasphemous. People will laugh at you, and if they don't laugh at you, they'll get mad at you. Because your comfort and naturalness under your own skin will make them uncomfortable and uneasy under theirs. You will make their skin crawl. They'll think you've gone off the rails. Well, because you have. But so what? Why would you care? Why would you want to spend another day caring about what others think? Why would you want to spend another day adopting other people's realities, other people's beliefs, other people's limitations, and squander away your chance to create your own reality on your own terms? Why would you want to spend another day making other people's realities more real than yours? This is definitely not an easy choice. But you know what? It gets easier. I know this because I've gone through it. It gets easier. As soon as you begin to own yourself, as soon as your consciousness begins to recondition itself as your true self, reality catches up to reflect the state of your new being. And you'll find that less and less people will antagonize you, fear you. Well, maybe they'll just go away. Either that or throw you out of their life. Good riddance. Or you'll simply stop giving a shit and only give your shit to shit that truly matters to you. And you know what happens when you choose that? All of a sudden, you'll run into people who are interested, curious, open, and wanting to know what you know. They'll say to you, "You certainly got your shit together, man. I want to know, how do you know all this shit? Because that's some good shit and I want some of that shit too." And that's the greatest upside to all this. The more you become unapologetically you, the more you give others permission to be them, to be different, to shine in the way that only they can, to take back ownership of themselves. And when I witness that spark of remembrance and longing ignite in another, I know it's rabbit hole time for them. I know what's ahead for them. I know they'll never be the same again. And just like that, I helped to fish out another brother or sister out of the matrix. I didn't do anything except to be the opening, the portal, the standard of someone who chooses her inner standard over subjecting herself to outer standards. That's all I can be. That's all you can be. That's all anyone can be for yourself and for the world. You see, no one can save another, but we can certainly point them to the right direction. Oh, and tell them that they don't need saving. All they needed was to see another ordinary human being just like them demonstrate in the outer reality what they secretly knew was the truth of their inner reality. Do you think you need to be a Jesus, a Buddha, Einstein, Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., or even Steve Jobs to contribute to and raise humanity's consciousness? These people all became great because they were revolutionaries. They went against the grain. They went rogue. They chose to be themselves and went about firmly on their way. They forged their own path, and by allegiance only to themselves, they tore a part of the matrix. And in rending the veil, they gave others a glimpse, an invitation, an opening to do and be the same. Those figures, they gave me that opening at some point. And I, too, chose to go rogue. And my desire in coming back to this podcast is so that I, too, can do my part in piercing the matrix. To pull back the curtains and to show you that things are not what they appear to be. All it takes is one person to make a difference in another. I'm doing my part by my choice. And you, by choosing to be you and daring to be different by virtue of your individuality and indivisibility, you will surely not only liberate yourself, but be a liberator to those who are ready to be liberated. Awakening is a choice, and by your choice to fully realize yourself, others will know that they too can choose. And the very knowledge that there even exists a choice to be free is the gateway to disconnecting from the matrix. I wish you a grand new year of joyful creations and unbounded, unbridled self-expression. Be sane enough to be crazy. Be sane enough to come back to yourself. Peace and blessings to you. I am that I am. You know, it's good to be back. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Alice Kim. Until next time. This episode can be found at disconnectmatrix.com/podcast/22. That's disconnectmatrix.com/podcast/22. As always, your comments and feedback are greatly appreciated. Email me at alice@disconnectmatrix.com. Again, that's alice@disconnectmatrix.com. I look forward to hearing from you.